Welcome to Nava Podcast with Leah Cardenas and Stella Pashos.
Let's explore the true essence of Nava.
Nava embodies the concept of beauty in all its forms. It represents the inner radiance that each woman possesses and the unique qualities that make her truly remarkable.
Our mission is to share the stories of inspiring women who are making their mark in the areas of fashion, health, lifestyle, and family. Our aim is to curate meaningful conversations where the journeys and experiences of our guests can inspire you in your own life.
We started this podcast to create a space where everyone can feel beautiful, inspired, and empowered.
Nava is not just a podcast, it's a celebration of the incredible women who have shaped our lives and the countless others who are yet to share their stories.
We can't wait for you to join us.
In today's episode, we dive deep into Yong Li's journey. We'll explore her background, her motivations, and the pivotal moments that led to the creation of Enbacci. Her story is one of entrepreneurship, innovation, and a deep-seated commitment to redefining luxury. And of course, we'll ask the questions that get to the core of Yong Li's passion and values in the skincare industry. This episode promises not only to inspire, but to provide you with a new lens through which you can view the world of beauty and wellness. So join us as we step into the world of Yong Li and Enbacci Skincare.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nava Podcast. I'm Leah Cardenas, and as always, I'm with my beautiful co-host, Stella.
Hey everyone, today we've got a very special guest joining us. It's Yong Li from Enbacci Skincare. Hey girl.
Hello guys, thanks for having me on today.
We're so excited to have this chat today with you. And fun fact for everyone, Yong Li and I actually worked together at Tiffany & Co. as Christmas casual. Maybe you came a bit after that, but over 10 years ago now.
Has it almost been that long?
Maybe 9 or 10 years ago. Yeah. So
yeah. It was good times though. Good times.
It was really fun. So today we're going to dive deep into Yong Li's journey. We're going to explore your background, how you got into skincare, and how that led to the creation of Enbacci. So before we begin, we're going to start off with a little round of, we call it 90 seconds with Yong Li, and then we'll jump into our conversation.
How old are you?
30.
Which city do you live in?
Melbourne, Australia.
Where did you grow up?
Melbourne, Australia.
What is your coffee order?
I don't drink coffee anymore, unfortunately. It's, for me, it's a chai latte, a soy chai latte.
Yum.
Beautiful.
Even better.
Do you have any pets?
I have a little spoodle cross Chihuahua, and her name is Olive.
Oh, I love that name. All right, random one. If you were a flavor of ice cream, what would you be?
Hokey pokey, because I love you think you're getting vanilla and then you've got like that little extra crunch.
That's so good. That's good.
Share a fun childhood memory that always makes you smile.
Oh, that one's very tricky. A fun childhood memory. Oh, probably for me, it would be my parents used to have a clothing store where they actually handmade all the clothes, and that was in Box Hill in Melbourne. And late at night, my brother and I used to turn on the music in the store, and we would just literally dance in front of the windows as people were passing by.
Oh, that's really cute. What is one word to describe yourself?
Compassionate.
What is the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Climbing a mountain and getting lost on it with my now husband.
What mountain?
So this is a little story on its own. So my husband and I, we went to Seoul and we decided to climb this mountain. But like we thought it was going to be like one of those walking like trail hikes, like where there's paths and stuff. And so we went with like just basic sneakers, like a jumper, a backpack with water, and just really basic gear. But as we were going up it, people were coming down it with like full on hiking boots, like those sticks.
Oh, no.
And we were like, maybe because they're like older, they need that assistance.
I need that grip.
So they need it. So like we were like, yeah, let's just keep going. We got all the way to the peak, which was wonderful. But it got dark very quickly, and we decided to go a different way down because we thought it would be quicker. We got lost. And it was very, very dark. We were on like 1% battery, and we were like, how the hell are we going to get out of this? And I remember there was a fork in the road, and it's like it was a three-pronged fork, and we had a choice to make, like, where are we going to go? And he's like, bring it in. He's like, we can do this. We're not going to be lost in here. We can do it. And I'm like, of course we're going to do it. Like, we don't have a choice. We got to get out of here. I was going to freeze with it. So yeah,
I feel like there's so many life lessons in that story. Which crossroad are we going to take? Are we going to go back the way we came? Logically, we should, but we're not. We're going to spin it.
And he tells that story. He likes to tell that story because, like, it was at that point he decided he wanted to marry me.
What qualities came out that were like, this is the girl?
The fact that I was calm and level-headed, and I'm a bit of a problem solver. Like, we were just going to figure this out. There's nothing that we can't do. And I say this, like, we're a really good team, right? So we're just a unit, and whatever we do in life, and he always reminds me this too, that we're a team, where we work together. So I think that is exactly what came out in that moment.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. Advice to all the singles. Go to a mountain with your newly found lover and see if they're the one. All right, let's jump in.
Yeah. Yong Li, can you share the story behind the creation of Enbacci Skincare and what inspired you to start this venture?
Yeah, so I was working in the family business. So the family business is in packaging, and it's still around. So my mum and dad, they basically do a lot of, your tubes, your bottles, and supply it to a lot of the big brands out there. And I was working at just doing like sort of the off-duty, like admin, emails, just helping out where I can. But it was through here that I kind of learned a lot about product development. And with all this access to contacts, we were seeing that there was really this big gap in the market for Australian luxury skincare. So we have brands, like Bondi Sands and Aesop that have sold for, their millions, billions recently. But if you look at where they sit in the market, it's still not that luxury tier. So, for us, I've always said Australia has access to resources. We have infrastructure here that is amazing. Why not make a name for ourselves within the industry? And it just so happened at the same time, while I was thinking about this, my mum was suffering from really sensitized skin. So it was so bad that, like, if she used something on her skin, it would literally, like, she would have bubbles, rashes, and be left with open sores. Yeah, so it was really nasty stuff. So we were kind of like, well, we've got, again, contacts. Why don't we utilize that and see what we can come up with and create? And so that's really how Enbacci started. Actually 10 years. We just celebrated 10 years last week. So
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a journey. And like you, kind of like Aaliyah was saying, I can't believe it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
It's so scary. Once you hit, well, you're only now just 30. Stella is about to join the club.
Not yet.
But I think once you get to your late 20s, it's just like, wow, 10 years has passed or 5 years has passed. It goes so quickly when you're in that adulthood part of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as soon as you have kids as well, like, you just, time goes so much faster.
It really does. Speaking of kids, how many do you have? Or, well, we already know you do have some, so let us know.
So I have two. I've got Marco, who turned 4 this year, and Mila, who just turned 1. Yeah, they're treasures, little treasures.
Does Marco love playing with his sister, or do they?
Yeah, they are so good together. So I kind of wanted like that 3-year age gap between them, just because I think you might know this, but like there is such a developmental leap just month by month. And so I was like, I think 3 years might be a sweet spot.
Yeah.
So we aim to have that age gap, and he is just the most caring little guy out there. When you see like sometimes like I think I had him and I was like, oh, I think he is going to be a big brother. Like he's just his personality, the way he cares for people, the way he plays with her and interacts with her. Even like I've had other mums and parents comment saying like, wow, he's so gentle with her and like and he's very inclusive. So yeah, he's the
I feel
best.
like that must come from the parents. Like you have such
I
a
hope
calm
so.
nature, so I feel like that definitely translates. And
Yeah, well, I mean, we've always encouraged, and I mean, from day one, we've always encouraged him to be like that, to be inclusive, to be how to say, to be inclusive and to be gentle, and to understand that his words have an impact. So,
yes.
like we always say to him, it's like, hey, like, for example, like toddler tantrums, hey, we're not yelling right now, but your voice is a bit raised. And we're like, how does that, if we're yelling at you, how does that make you feel? So we're always like kind of making him reflect on his own actions and then figuring out how that might impact somebody else.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Did you learn that from your childhood, or is that something just naturally that?
No, so my mum, like I said, one of the questions you asked before, it's like, how would you describe myself? And I said compassionate. And I think that was very much something that my mum instilled in me. The little story she used to, like, analogy she would always use, she's like, just remember, like, you're a little gemstone, and every good little thing you do is polishing that gemstone, but every bad thing you're doing is scuffing that gemstone. So you can shine as bright as you want by doing your good acts, or you could be as dull as you want by doing the bad things. That's how she used to describe it. And so I think, like I said, I still remember it now.
Yeah.
My brother still remembers it now, and that's something that we always think of. So I think I don't necessarily use that analogy with my kids yet, because I don't think they quite understand it. But I think, yeah, like I said, compassion was always something that I was going to carry through with the kids. You see now there's like a lot of information about gentle parenting through social media and all that, and even just access to resources, so just books and what have you, and being able to click into webinars and people talking about this stuff is just amazing. So we try and incorporate what we're learning, because as parents we're learning, right? So
yeah, definitely.
I love that, just even not just in our childhoods, but even in our careers, and something that someone says sticks and stays with you for life. And so yeah, that's really special. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, if if it's a good lesson, if it does stick with you.
Yeah, that's right. Or if you're ready to learn it or listen, I suppose.
That's true too. That's very true too.
Let's cycle back. Can you tell us in your own words a little bit about Enbacci?
Yeah. So how I like to define Enbacci is we're an Australian luxury skincare brand, but we're best known for our product formulations that contain fruit and plant stem cells. So back in 2012, it was recognized, or fruit and plant stem cell technology, the sourcing of it, was recognized at the Rio 20 Plus conference of sustainability. So we launched in 2013. And so we were right on the forefront of that innovation and that technology and utilizing it in our products. And the really beautiful thing about fruit and plant stem cells in skincare is that it's a very effective antioxidant. So it helps to prevent things like environmental stresses, which causes premature aging. One of the stem cells we actually use in our body lotion, it contains a flower stem cell from a flower that survived the last ice age. So through its adaptive mechanisms, it's an old thing. So through its adaptive mechanisms, amazingly, this antioxidant is really good at maintaining hydration in the skin, keeping the skin keeping the elasticity. Supple was the word I was looking for. Yes. And maintaining the elasticity within the skin, which is, again, very important in terms of preventing the signs of aging. The other really wonderful thing about the plant and fruit stem cell technology is that it is, as I mentioned, sustainable. So it's sustainably sourced. So for example, the apple and the grape that we use, they're actually considered endangered and rare varieties of the fruits. Wow. So by utilizing them in our products, we're actually supporting the farmers who grow them. So we're actually protecting biodiversity.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you started Enbacci 10 years ago. You would have been around 20 years old.
I was 20, so I was in my first year of uni, and I was doing my arts degree, which wasn't my first choice. So back in high school, I had set myself up to do medicine. I wanted to be a doctor, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And then I got to year 11, my biology was great. I was good at that. Chemistry, not so much. I was really, really shocking at chemistry.
I hated chemistry too. I dropped out.
You know what? It's not, I say something. It's not that I didn't like it. It's just it didn't like me. Anyway, I actually got to year 11, and my mum was like, she sat me down one day, and she's like, "Look, you're not going to be a doctor." And I was like, "Oh, wow, thanks." And she's like, "It's not that you don't have the ability to do it. It's that it's not suited to your personality." And it's amazing to think, like, you know, when you're a teenager, you think you know yourself and blah, 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 but you really don't. Parents, I think at that age, still know you the best. And so I'm really thankful that she did sit me down for that, and had that conversation with me, because I think I would have been much different place than I am right now. So I ended up doing an arts degree, ended up focusing on politics and linguistics and languages. And I actually, although I loved doing it, I didn't feel like it was what I was going to do in the future. And like I said, I was still working in the family business at that time, and I was like, we could do something here. Fast forward like 10 years, I'm now a cosmetic chemist. So going back to the chemistry story, like full circle.
Yeah.
I'm a cosmetic chemist.
Well, bless you.
No, bless me. I mean, like, so the way we describe cosmetic chemistry is that it's like baking a cake, and I love baking. Like, if anybody asks you like anything about me, it's that I do love baking. And I love creating cakes. I love decorating cakes. And so that's what I try to draw upon when I'm creating something, when I'm formulating something. So yeah.
So you actually create the recipe for your products?
Yeah. So when we first started, we actually started with contract manufacturers, and the contract manufacturers at the time that we were working with, they helped us develop our products, because at the time I wasn't accredited. I didn't have my diploma. I've learned a lot, I guess, throughout the 10 years. But yeah, so we worked with the contract manufacturers and their cosmetic chemists to develop the formulas. Yeah. And we were basically, the way it looked like is we give them a brief. This is what we want. This is what we're looking for. These are the ingredients we want to include. And they come and develop and give you samples. And then you get those samples and you say, this is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what and then they kind of make changes and adjust to them. And then products go through stability testing once they're happy and you're happy with it, before they go out to market.
There you go.
And so recently, as in the last 5 years, new product developments I've actually been hands-on with. So I do fully create the formulas and the recipes that come out to market.
That is so cool. I love that. Women creating things from scratch and being in, such a intricate industry, I want to say. Yeah, it is. It's I guess one of the things about me is I've always loved the sciences. Like I said, like I was great at biology. I was just shit at chemistry, but I always still loved them. And I love reading peer review journals and results. And I love looking at all that and understanding and learning. And that's what piques my interest. So when I get, somebody tells me that there's a new ingredient out in the market and I read that, that's the part of the job of this business that I enjoy. That's so cool. So the skincare industry is highly competitive. There's so many brands out there and sometimes we're often bombarded with them. What strategies have you employed to stand out to establish Enbacci as a trusted brand? I know we spoke about you being one of the only Australian luxury brands. But what else do you feel like sets you guys apart?
So one of the things that we haven't been and we weren't is purely a social media based brand. I think in the last 5 years, what you've seen is an increase in social influencer brands.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what that means for our industry is there is actually a lack of innovation. So there isn't much new material, because what it is essentially is a manufacturer making a product and then putting somebody else's label on it.
Yeah, so true. We're not really seeing people reinvent the wheel. We're just purchasing the same product labeled or marketed in a different way.
Exactly, in a different way. And so for us, that's why it was important for us to use the fruit and plant stem cells, because it is not only innovative technology, it's got like the sustainability story to it, and you're actually helping communities and rebuild environment. So for us, that has been a key part of our marketing plan, so to say. And it's something that we've actually been revisiting in the last year and making sure we really push through. You're getting a lot more conscious consumers. And what we've tried to do as well is we're trying to promote conscious consumerism. So I think in the last couple of years, we kind of got caught up in the Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales, and trying to just catch a sliver of that. Because what we were finding is that we were getting lost in amongst it all, and our sales significantly decreased. That being said, we made the conscious decision not to do sales anymore and discount our products, because one, that doesn't value our product and the ingredients that we put in our product. And it doesn't also, then you have your consumers who are just waiting for the discount. And again, that doesn't promote conscious consumerism. So for us, it's those were the kind of the deciding factors for it. And one thing that's been really important to us is that we want to be a brand for the future. We don't want to make quick money and then be gone, or we don't want to make quick money and then, move on to the next best thing. We're not hyping a trend. We are teaching people about skincare education, conscious consumerism, so things that they're incorporating into their lifestyle. So, yeah, that's the other thing. I think that answers your question.
I think that's really interesting, because especially having come from working in luxury, I think that's something that I learned then, especially working at Tiffany and then at Cartier. Those two brands in particular were so strict on not discounting items because it devalues the brand. So I think it's really interesting. Obviously, once you've built enough trust in your client database and made that pivot to uphold the value of your work, obviously your consumers will perceive that and see that as well. So I think that's really interesting.
It's also from a product pricing perspective as well. Like when we first started the brand, we back then we didn't include discounted pricing. So in our pricing structure, and we till this day still haven't really done it. But like I said, the price of raw materials has changed and increased over the years. So for example, like where it used to cost $2,000 for 1 kilo of stem cells, it now costs $4,500 for 1 kilo of stem cells. And so where is that going? And like we've mostly tried to absorb those costs in the last couple of years, but now you're kind of thinking it's to its edge, and how can we provide the consumers with still value for money without blowing it out of the water.
Yeah, and I think obviously there's a shift in the economy at the moment, and that also plays into conscious consumerism, because we are wanting to make more intentional purchases and be educated in what we're buying. But I feel like it can go the other way, where consumers may want to still get as much value for the same dollar. It's about that education piece would be so important.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's so interesting, being our first guest who has created a product from scratch and launched it, and you're 10 years in now, and just hearing about the different conversations and things you've had to consider when it comes to your brand, your branding, who you like, what you want to stand for and where you want to go to the future. I feel like you're really started to think now, 10, 20 years into the future, how are you going to be more sustainable? How are you going to help communities and people become more aware of their choices, there's just, you're on another level of thought now as opposed to just how am I to get my product out there. It's really interesting to hear that and how you're navigating that journey at the moment.
I actually think it's an important step for all brand owners to consider, though, because if you want longevity, you need to be. So my ethos is if you're going to be a product for the future, you need to be thinking about that future. So the thing that they say about kids, our kids at the moment in the next 30 years are going to be the next CEO. So what we teach them now is how they're going to value humans, people, environment in the future. Same thing with our products, right? If our products aren't made to withstand what's coming, then we don't expect to exist in the next 30 years.
Yeah. I was going to ask, can you tell us about the name Enbacci and where that came from?
Funny story.
Love it.
So the company name is actually Embrace Products Group. And when we wanted to start this brand, we wanted to call it Embrace because for us it was like embrace skin, embrace body, embrace who you are. So that was really the value that we wanted to uphold. You take that to an IP lawyer and it's not a very trademarkable word. It was also already trademarked by a very nice big company out there, Unilever, and their Dove campaign. So it's not something that we could do.
Yeah.
So the IP lawyer was like, look, you need to go back to the drawing board and come up with something unique. And I still remember this. He's like, for example, Yui is such a good example of where they've got a word and they've just slightly changed it and they've kind of got this whole new word. So we were like, cool. Let's do that. Let's get our thinking hats on. We had already decided on a Chinese name for the company, so Enbacci, and it doesn't mean anything, but to us it was a representation of embrace. Because when you look at the first character and the last character, they look very similar, so it kind of looks like it's hugging the whole word together. And so and then the reason why we ended up with Baci and not Barci or something like that was because, if you take the Baci sound in Italian, it means kiss, which also means to embrace. So it was just kind of like a nice way of rounding out and mixing up cultures and linguistics, so to say, to come up with Enbacci.
That's beautiful. Naming conventions really fascinate me so much. I love understanding the strategy. I just wish I was a fly on the wall when business owners are discussing the name for their business. When you drive past some signage and you're like, how did you come up with that name? Where did that come from?
We'll be back
after a short break.
If you haven't already heard of Strider, they are the revolutionary insoles featured in this season's Shark Tank.
Strider is the home of happy feet. Their mission is to empower you to move at your best, pain-free. To help you take charge of your life and health from the feet up, Strider are offering Nava listeners an exclusive 10% off with code NAVA. That's Nava at checkout.
Now let's get back to the conversation.
So I was going to ask as well, so when would you bring in an IP lawyer to discuss a name? Is that something that all businesses should do?
Very, very big. If you are a brand, most definitely. It really depends on your business strategy, right? So for us, it was important to get an IP lawyer on hand because we are marketing a product not only within Australia but also globally. And you don't want to be so firstly, you don't want competition for that name, but you don't also want people to be infringing on other people's copyrights, right? So I think for me, it's very important to get that done at the beginning. And for us, that's exactly what we did. Especially before you put a product out and then you realize that somebody else has that name or something similar in that category and then you have to recall. So you want to avoid that.
Yeah, I feel like I've dabbled a little bit in trademarking and just simple searches of names, but you never really know, I guess, if it's your first product or first business, you don't really know where you can go wrong and what can come to kind of bite you later on. So I guess having that formality done would be a really important step. And I think perhaps an oversight that a lot of business owners may have. Yeah.
what a lot of lawyers will do is they're happy to make that initial consultation with you for free as well. So it's nothing just to, take a little bit of their time and figure out where you stand and then kind of make your next decisions based on that. But it's going to be like a big bite
Yes.
if you don't do that.
Well, yeah, great advice.
And you need to choose which industries your brand is within as well.
That's correct. Yeah. So, for example, like ours is in the cosmetic. I think it's category 3. So, But that being said, just because you're in that category doesn't mean that the word or whatever you're trademarking is not applicable to other categories as well. So, for example, if somebody wanted to create Enbacci, a stationery brand, they still can't do that because their Enbacci already exists elsewhere. And also, one thing to also consider is that IP is based on location as well. So we had to not only trademark it in Australia, but we had to do it in the US and China and Thailand. So other markets as well.
Yeah, there's so much when it comes to that side of things. But I think the key takeaway is go talk to someone that knows.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're in 4 countries at the moment?
So when we first launched, we actually launched as mainly an export brand. So we actually launched in Thailand. That was our main market.
I remember this, actually, I feel.
Yes. So we had a big launch party over there. We had our main distributor over there. But we felt like you couldn't necessarily be a brand overseas without celebrating it back in its origin country. So in 2014, we actually really kind of brought it back and we started doing a lot of blogger events. Well, back then there were blogger events. Hosting bespoke things in hotel rooms, getting them come and learn about the products and then them writing up about it. And so that's how we kind of slowly gained traction here in Australia. And then in 2017, we decided we really needed this physical presence because I think skincare is one of those things that you need to touch. And everybody has a personal preference when it comes to skincare. So, and then also having a touch point in terms of how we can educate consumers and our clients. So we started this hunt for a physical location, but we weren't actively looking. And then one day after driving to a couple of sites, we just happened to cross this little location that we're in now. And we saw a for lease sign. And it used to be an old antique store. So when you look at it from the outside, everything looks pitch black because there used to be chandeliers and what have you hanging here. And both my mom and I, we just saw it and we were like, oh, this could be it. This could be our place. And we just had a vision that this was going to be the space for it. And luckily for us, it was available and they were more than happy for us to take it on and do whatever changes that we wanted to it. So that's how we then decided to grow here in Melbourne. The store provides us with a location to host events. So, for example, most recently we did a My Mummy event, which we had mums come into the store and we treated them to an express facial. We had an Intimo ambassador, bra fitting specialist here so that she could fit them and gave them a little bit of a styling education as well, and how to stylize pieces, how to wear them multiple ways. It was just a really great time to allow for connection. And then, like I said, you get to create this rapport with clients in a physical space that you don't necessarily get to create in an e-commerce space.
That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it is. I really love hosting the events because that's really when you get to sit down and talk to people and they really learn more about you. There is so much you can put out on a website or in an article, even listening to podcasts, right? This is a great space because people will listen. People are taking the time to click in, to listen, to learn about whatever the brand or the business. Like I said, with websites and e-commerce, people don't necessarily click through and want to read all of it. They have a purpose. They have limited time.
Yeah.
But when they're in this space, there's nothing else for them to do but to be in this space and to learn and to talk. So, yeah.
I think that community engagement is really beautiful. And for me personally, when I'm like purchasing from a brand, I love to know about who created it and where the products come from and all of those beautiful things. And I think, like, for example, my partner's in the pizza hospitality industry. So it's something as simple as a pizza shop. People that come in want that engagement from their, from the business. They want to know that you remember their regular order, or, even when you're ordering a coffee, like you love having those interactions of meaningful engagement. So I think, events really encapsulate that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a time for you to also put on display what you're about and communicate that almost instantly.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something, again, going back to our time in luxury, when you have that person that you can relate to, that's your trusted advisor, and you love what they're about, you're going to purchase that product. Because I remember going from Tiffany to Cartier to Chanel, and my clients would follow me to each brand regardless of what I sold. So it was about that personal interaction.
Yeah, exactly. And for us, like, for a long time, I shied away from being the face of the brand, so to say, or to put myself out there. But I realized, like, a few years in, that that's what people were looking for. They were looking to buy from a brand owner, not a brand, so to say.
Do you think that has come from our love of influencers now? I feel like maybe
Potentially.
maybe when we were younger, we had, like role models and, famous sporting people and that. And then there was like a whole period of time where maybe we didn't even know who owned the brands or who was behind them. But I feel like now that we're becoming more aware of our choices and sustainability, and that we have influencers, we value who's behind things a little bit more.
100%. And it's also like, as a small, like, for example, for us as a small business, or any small business out there, right? It's that connection that you create and that rapport you create. It's like, oh, I'm buying from someone who's like me or in a similar position to me. Like, I want to support that. Or I like brand values, for example. Like, I like that they're creating products that are going to be about the future and to support future and support environment. That's what I want to be buying. And again, it kind of, like you said, it goes back to that conscious consumerism, right? And people buying for that now rather than because a product is hyped.
Yeah. And I think that's great. Though, as you were saying, some of the challenges and the environment we're in at the moment globally with finance, and times are getting a little bit tougher, thinking about how to educate people and what choices you need to make as a brand to help your brand, but also help the customer, is really challenging. Do you have any other challenges or things that you've faced?
I'm kind of going back to just on that point. My husband sometimes asks me, he's like, why do you have to use luxury? Like, doesn't doesn't having that word kind of make you seem unattainable? And I was like, I've had to reflect on it, and I've decided to keep it in, and I've kept it in all these years, because at the end of the day, it's not about the cost of our product. It's about what we're offering as a brand, right? So to me, luxury means you're doing better. You're doing something, whether that be for the environment, socially, and for us, we try to include those in our actions, right? So, for example, every purchase on our e-commerce store, minimum of $1 gets donated to one of 3 projects, right? So that's one way that we're doing better. The fruit and plant stem cells is another example of one way that we're doing better. So to me, like, I think redefining what luxury is has been important to us, and understanding that when people are buying luxury, they're buying something that does better.
That's fantastic. I love that. I'm going to use that. I like luxury. But that's so true. I like that you took the time to think about, actually, why do I like this word? And what is it about this word that we're going to impart with Enbacci?
Yeah.
And where are you going to take it? How are you going to redefine it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, for a long time, it was just like, because our packaging looked luxurious and what have you. And yes, they're luxurious, but on that other side, they've got a recyclability component to it, or the materials that they're made of are what we would consider not necessarily the cheapest material that we could be using, but it serves again that luxury function of doing better.
Yeah. We're going to pivot a little bit. So our podcast is based on 4 pillars: fashion, health, family, and lifestyle. I'd love to jump into your family life. I know that you had struggled with endometriosis. If you wanted to share a little bit about your journey from quite a young age, wasn't it? Like early 20s or even
20,
way before that?
Yeah. So I started getting my periods at 12. Like I still remember the day I got my first period. I don't know if you do remember, but I still remember. And ever since I had been getting my period, they were always irregular. They were always heavy and just painful. And I think one of the things we're taught at school is it's normal. So you don't go thinking anything is wrong. But I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I was that girl waiting for lunch or recess to hit so that I could just rush to the toilet and make sure I hadn't bled out all over my dress. And I was also that kid at school, when we had school swimming, I often missed it, and my mum would write notes for me, and then the teacher would be like, "You had your period last week. How could you be having it again?" So there was this lot of, how to say, non-compassionate understanding, lack of understanding behind it. Back then, obviously in high school, I didn't know I had endometriosis. My mum, when I was 19, had a laparoscopy, which is basically keyhole surgery, and it's investigative surgery to see if you have endometriosis. Sure enough, she did. And she was already 45 at the time, 43, 45, something between that in the time. So she's been living it with most of her life. And it was at this point my GP said to me, she's like, "Look, your mum has it. There's a high chance that it is hereditary. It hasn't been proven, but there's a high chance that it is. Recommend you go see a gynecologist and get it checked out too." I was like, cool. So I had my surgery. I came out of that first surgery and I was in agony because it was just the pain of it was so intense. The surgeon came out and she's like, "You had one of the worst cases of endometriosis I have seen in a long time."
Oh my goodness. And how old were you at the time?
I was 20. I was turning 20, something. Right? It was when I was around 20.
You'd already been suffering with it for 8 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So probably all my life. So endometriosis is one of those diseases that grows as you have a period as well, right? That's its chance to worsen in your body, so to say. So after that surgery, I went on what's called the Zoli, which is one of the pills, but at that time it was very expensive pill, like $90 every 3 months.
Yeah.
So I was on that for 3 years, and it got to about that third year, and I was like, my body just doesn't feel like it's it's not working. For a lot of people, the Zoli completely stops periods, but for me, I was still getting the monthly periods, just they weren't as heavy. But by that third year, they were becoming heavy again, and they were also becoming irregular. I was getting spotting, and I just felt like it wasn't right. So I decided to take myself off it. I gained a super amount of weight once I came off it. And I felt like that was just your body regulating itself again. But I was having the intense pains, the massive bleeding. And it's to the point where you're literally crawled up in bed. You've got a migraine that's going on and you just physically can't move. And to have that happen at least once a month, it's really it's annoying. It's irritating.
It's
and to be in pain. And to be in pain as well, it's not only mentally exhausting, it's physically exhausting, right? So went to go see my gynecologist again. And over the 4 years, we obviously had every 6 months I was getting an ultrasound to make sure that there was no endometriosis in there. Unfortunately for me, endometriosis doesn't come up on an ultrasound. So everything looks fine on the outside, but internally it's not. So she was like, "Look, maybe it's time to revisit and have another surgery." So I scheduled myself for another surgery. Sure enough, I had 8 new sprouts of endometriosis that needed to be cut out. I had my tubes flushed to make sure that they were working. I have one, I think she left on my left ovary because it's basically attached to the ovary, and if you touch it, she might do more damage than good. And I came out of that surgery again in pain and having to stay overnight. And she came out and saw me and she was like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. If you want children in your future, you've got to start in the next year. And in my like drugged up state, I was like, maybe 2 years? Because at that point, I'd only just like, I was 6 months into a relationship with Jesse, my now husband. And so I was thinking, don't think he's ready for it. Don't think we're ready for it. So that night he comes in with a bunch of flowers, being like, you know, being the supportive boyfriend. And my mum's like, first thing she says to him, you guys got to have babies. Oh, okay. And bless him. He's been like he's the best. Like he's just 100% their person for you. He's supportive. He's everything. So we decided quite shortly after that we were going to try and have kids together. We how do you say, he proposed a couple months later. We planned a wedding in like 5 months. We got married, and after that surgery, I actually had a Mirena put in, which is like an IUD, and that was the intention of that was to stop bleeding again, so that endometriosis wouldn't sprout, give me an opportunity to then conceive properly or without any assistance. So after our honeymoon, I had the Mirena removed. We tried. Thankfully, we were successful from the get-go. And that's how Marco came about. Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, it's not a done thing. I'm in one of those states where I'm like, I don't know if the endometriosis has grown back. Thankfully, like I decided after I had Mila, I had the Mirena put back in quite quickly to try and stop the periods or to reduce the amount of bleeding I've been having. But that for me, that's been the best way to manage it.
Yeah. And I think something that I had listened to another conversation that you had was the challenge that arose from needing to step away from your newly founded business at a time where your health needed to take priority and your family needed to take priority. So could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I've met a lot of women, particularly women in retail, who chose to have children later and regretted it. And I actually remember one of our conversations with one of the colleagues at Tiffany's, and she was saying that if she could go back in time, she honestly would not have delayed having children and just had them earlier. I always knew I wanted a family, and I didn't want to have those regrets later on. And I think having the doctor say, look, because again, she was a fertility specialist as well, like IV is her thing. Having her say, look, you need to consider it now. I was 23, 24 at the time. So relatively, I think, early for a lot of women these days. For her to say that, I was like, okay, that really put in my forefront the importance of this, and that, you know, and again, for me, I'm lucky that I have my own business and that I could step away from the business in a way to focus on personal life. At the end of the day, family is what you're going to have for the rest of your life. You know, business can come and go. Not to say that I want this to go, but business can come and go. You can always start something else. You can always build upon it. So for me, that was my important. I wasn't going to miss out on that opportunity. I didn't want to become then a resentful person or a person who thought, you know, that life is doing me bad. Because I think that would have then also translated into my work. So yeah, I remember there was this point where I had considered maybe I could delay having children. And again, I just had so many conversations with women who were like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to put yourself in that situation where, you know, you then have to go revisit IV and IVF.
Yeah, I feel like, and it obviously seems like the stars had aligned for when you had met Jesse. Like, what were the chances that all timed in really beautiful way.
In a beautiful fashion.
For as long as I've known, like we were really young when we worked together in our 20s or earlier, and I just always remember you to be so mature and just like you had your head on your shoulders, and I think that really helps in obviously your business and in identifying a life partner. So for some people might see that as, 6 months, it's not really that long to have jumped into a family, but obviously your decision making, your criteria for someone is really high for the standards that you had for yourself. So just wanted to preface to our audience.
Yeah, no. So I should also say I was in like a 4-year relationship prior to Jesse. And I look back at, not that I think you should ever compare relationships, but if you were to compare the relationship, they were completely different people. And when you are wanting a family, you have to be thinking, who is going to be my partner in this? Like, it's a team effort, right? Like, it's not mum does mum stuff and then dad can go and work. That's not how it works these days. And that's not how it should work. It's a team effort with raising children. It's a team effort to be responsible for that next generation of people. So who is going to be the best support for me in that next stance, like in that next part of our lives, next part of our journey? Going back to my story about being on the mountain, we were a team from the get-go.
Yeah.
And so if we were a team there, like, you can imagine what we were going to be as parents.
That's beautiful. That actually ties into what Leah's question was earlier. So I think we discussed a little bit about the juggle of, before we jumped on and started recording, we were talking about the juggle that women have with raising a family. And Leah, do you want to share your thoughts on that question?
So we hate the question of how do you juggle work and family? Because I hate that men don't get asked that question. But we started to unpack before we were recording that, I don't know, we unfortunately do have to make that decision still, and those thoughts are on our mind as women, and we don't want to preface that that's only on women, but because we're the ones that carry them innately, we have those feelings. So I would love to hear your thoughts on that topic and how you are balancing all your responsibilities that you have at the moment.
So I am really lucky that we have our little community who helps us out. And raising a family, raising kids requires a community. So we have both sets of grandparents who are hands-on, and who will be happy to take the kids or help out with the kids when we need. So that is first and foremost. Again, having that supportive partner who not only cherishes responsibility of the kids, but also cherishes your time away. So for me, like, for example, I like to go rowing on, well, let me just say this. Jesse is a very big advocate for exercise and doing exercise for mental health, so to say. And so he's always been on me to stick to a routine or have a routine or have time away where I just exercise for like 30 minutes or an hour or so. I unfortunately, after having 2 kids and having endometriosis, has led to an overactive pelvis for me. So an overactive pelvic floor, which means that your muscles are like basically always contracted rather than.
That's so funny. I actually, after having my daughter Isla, we found when I saw women's health physio that I think due to the amount of core exercise and exercise that I chose to do, I actually had to learn to relax my pelvic floor.
Yes.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
And it actually makes childbirth more difficult.
Yes, because it's one of those. So they call it I think you've learned this, the whole central nervous system, and learning to basically create new channels through the brain so that you can feel. Yes, so I think we've done the same exercises, and learning to basically detrain your pelvic floor. Unfortunately, running is not good for that. So I had stopped running. Instead, I went back into rowing.
That's so cool. I used to row too. We should be best friends.
Guys, don't leave me out. I've always wanted to row. And I can't.
We should get in a boat together. There we go.
I used to row 8 crew in high school.
Yes, so did I.
What seat were you?
I was stroke. I am still stroke, but like I've been, yeah.
I was powerhouse. I was number 4.
Oh, we got to get you back in a boat. I'm looking for a doubles partner if you want to learn how to scull.
What about me? It is
We can have you coxing the boat.
Yeah, you're small enough.
I'll be there.
Yeah, so I've actually started rowing again. This year I started rowing, and like Jesse again, he takes kid. He's got the kids, right? And he's like, go and do your rowing, and is accommodating on that aspect. And same thing goes for here, right? I've got the kids when he decides to go for a run. So really, just what's that word? Tag teaming, juggling life. Yeah, so community, partner, and I guess I'm really lucky again to have a business of my own that provides an immense amount of flexibility. Not to say that it's perfect, but it does mean that, you know, when I'm working on the business, I'm working on the business. But then when I want my family time, it's purely family time. And it took me a while to find the balance. Like there's no such thing. I don't think there's such thing as balance, but it took me that time to find what worked for me. So, like, for example, during COVID, the lockdowns, that second year, those snap lockdowns, those were really hard on me because I felt that as soon as we had those snap lockdowns, I was home with at that time it was just Marco, and I couldn't have my attention pulled on 2 different things. I couldn't work and then also spend time with him. It wasn't fair to him. It's not fair to work. It's not fair to me. So I remember at one point I was like bawling my eyes out because I actually felt guilty that I couldn't work on the business. You know, the business itself has its own responsibilities. You've got the store, you've got staff. So I felt guilty for not being able to do it. And I remember crying to Jesse, being like, I mentally cannot do this. And he's like, just communicate that with me and we will work things out. Like we will figure out how you can, like we'll figure out a way that's best works for you, right? So yeah, that's when I really learned, okay, if Marco's home, it's Marco time. If he's not home, then that's when I can smash out stuff that I need to do for the business. And one of the things I also really struggled through that time was being creative because you just don't have that mental capacity to think outside of what needs to be done.
There's no bandwidth. Yeah.
Exactly. But then having that delineating that just helps a little bit.
I have so many things to add to this. I know we're running short on time, but
yeah.
First thing was I love, I'm reading a book at the moment and it's all about empowering you to state your desires. I think we all have so many. And even that, as simple as what Jessie had said to you is, you know, just tell me, you know, just voice it. And I think sometimes we don't, we keep it inside of us and it builds up, and it's something as simple as stating your desire and just put it out there and just say, you know, it can solve a lot of your problems.
Having a weekly reflection on what you've done or what you've achieved, on what happened that, you know, made that day so good or that week so good. And it kind of just gives you an idea of where your mindset is at. And then it also gives you an idea of what you could next try to achieve. And then having that written down for me in a journal means like I could be like to Jessie, hey, like this is what my week looked like. And this is what I've learned. This is what I've achieved.
I think it's really important, a really important exercise that I would love to do that I haven't done. I always wanted to do, like journaling and reflection, because we're so busy, especially in Melbourne. It's like that hustle culture, and we find it hard to just slow down, and having that time to reflect just gives you the opportunity to be aware of how you're showing up and what you need.
It's also, sometimes I think, like, for example, for me, journaling is as simple as writing a note in your phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. It's just a thought that just pops in and just having that there. So like, unfortunately, my phone is like full of all these notes, but it's just one way of getting it done and doing it, rather than having to be like, I need to dedicate like half an hour to making my journal look beautiful or whatever. Like sometimes that's not helpful. Sometimes it is just by getting that thought down. And it's a bit woo-woo, but having it out there in the universe outside of your head.
it helps.
It gives a sense of release for sure.
Yes, exactly.
So we'll just close with our last segment. So Nava represents the core values we explore in our podcast. Each letter of Nava stands for an essential aspect of personal and professional growth. The first one is navigate, which was how do you set clear goals? And I feel like you've kind of just answered that through journaling. And that was some really good tips. If there wasn't anything you wanted to add to that, we can move on to A for aspire.
Yeah, I mean, from a business perspective, you've got things like your business plan, right? That's a really good way to look at goals. For us, what we've started to do is really, really stick to weekly team meetings. So, and even if I'm not in the business, we'll still hold it digitally, because I think it's important to not only help yourself like know where the team is at, but it's also to help the team go, oh, this is what I've achieved for the week. This is what I'm going to work on next. So from a business perspective, that would be my tip.
I remember that from corporate, and I'm unemployed at the moment, but when I worked in tech sales, we had strong weekly alignments, and I would be cursing. My whole team would be cursing at why do we need like 3 alignment meetings, but everyone's in the loop that way. You can catch up on details you've missed, and you're eliminating any room for error. So I think it's really important.
Exactly.
So A is for aspire. What advice do you have for individuals who are looking to dream big and set ambitious goals for themselves?
Nothing is too big. I had an ex-boyfriend say to me, he's like, it scares me how big you dream, and it scares me how big your goals are. I should have been one of those red flags. It should have been a red flag, right? It wasn't necessarily a red flag, but it really, like, that's, I don't limit yourself.
Yes.
I actually had this conversation with someone yesterday as well. It's like, be bold. Don't like dream big. There's no shame in dreaming big. Obviously, eventually you dream, but you start off by dreaming big, and then you build up the steps to it. But there's nothing wrong with dreaming big and having great big aspiration. For example, Enbacci, my big goal would be to be as big as L'Oreal Group or Estee Lauder Group one day. But for Australia, why not?
Can't wait to see it.
V for value. How do you prioritize self-care and maintain a healthy work-life balance?
So yeah, this again goes back to the whole community and having that community. One thing I think I did need to learn throughout like this motherhood journey was knowing when to ask for help, or just asking for help. People always tell you, like, you know, we're there for you, but you're like, I don't want to encroach on. And I think it maybe it's part of my culture, maybe it's just who we are as people, as women, but just saying, hey, I need help. Can you assist with this? And a lot of the times they're like, yeah, 100%, sure. Like, people are so accommodating. Yeah.
It's so hard. There definitely is this pressure, especially if you're more of a type A personality, that you have to do it all and have it all together all the time. And it feels sometimes like when you have to ask for help, that I don't know, have done something wrong or you've missed something. But it's pride. No, it's terrible, but it's not
ego.
about that.
Yeah. Well, it's also I'm not gonna lie, I am a bit of a control freak. Like, I do like to be in control, because at least then I feel like I can navigate what's happening. But again, I think maybe having kids learns you to try and let go of that. I think having kids makes you learn to reevaluate your pride, your ego. Whereas early in the business, I would have been like, but it's not worth your mental headspace for that. So
yeah.
And the last one is A for achieve. So I'd love to know, based on your own experiences, what practical steps or strategies would you suggest to our audience? It doesn't have to be business related, just any practical kind of steps to start anything, really.
Just get started. I don't think I think what we get, especially is when we get caught up with like thinking and fearing like the worst case scenario, but we don't think about the best case scenario. And so we get overwhelmed and have that anxiety about like what if it goes wrong? And then that stops us from ever doing what it is that we want to do. So, similar to someone I spoke to yesterday, it was just about like going all in and just giving it a go. You can always, you're always working on it as it progresses, but just get started.
Oh, I guess one last question or two. Firstly, can you just let us know where our audience can reach you, and can you also share your favorite product and skin tip?
Yeah.
Okay. Favorites. Okay. So you can find me. So our social media for most of them is at Enbacci, Enbacci. That's Instagram, Facebook. If you wanted to reach out personally, the best way to do it would be probably through the website, and you can just like send in a message there, and that the staff will kind of pass that on through to my personal email. My favorite product at the moment is the Calm Reset Cleansing Balm. We only launched that in June, and we've sold out twice already. It is one of those multi-purposeful products that obviously cleanses the skin, but also nourishes and hydrates. And it's one of those ones that I really created it completely on my own. We thought about the packaging particularly for this one. So if you purchase this product, because it's in a glass jar, if you were to send it back to us, we give you a discount code to use on your next product purchase, and we can then, depending on the quality of what you've brought back, we either send it to recycling or we can reuse it, so it goes onto somebody else's home. So that one is really my favorite at the moment. And as for mum life, like it's just simple, super simple, just to as a routine. None of this.
And a nice ritual. I feel like I love the idea of a balm. It just feels like the texture is so nice and just like a moment.
Calming.
Yeah.
Yep. It's one of my favorite things. Like it's one of those times where it allows you to actually feel your skin. I think we kind of forget to touch it and to understand the texture and what's going on. So it's really one of those times to actually to feel your skin and to feel where it's at, to feel the roughness or smoothness or whatever it is. My skincare tip. So other than your SPF, a moisturizer. So I think a lot of people get caught up on the fact that if they have acne or oily skin, to skip out on a moisturizer. And this is one of the most damaging things you can do, because your skin then goes, oh, I need more moisture. So it will produce more oils, and then in turn you have more acne. So moisturizer.
What's one thing we can all do today to improve our skin?
Taking the time to actually do a routine. I think so many of us kind of just, at the end of the day, if you don't so many of us at the end of the day, if you don't have a routine, end up going to bed with like makeup on or something like that, and just don't take the time to effectively cleanse the skin, which means that your skin doesn't have time overnight to breathe. Also, throughout the day, you're exposed to pollutants. So this isn't just applicable to women, it's applicable to men as well. Your skin is exposed to pollutants throughout the day, and without doing just a basic wash, you're not removing any of it. So then you have more skin concerns that pop up. So I think for me, the one thing would be just do a cleanse, do a moisturize. 2 steps, simple as that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Yong Li, for coming on. We had such a lovely time chatting, and I'll see you on the water soon.
Yes, I will definitely see you there.
Beautiful. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thank you, ladies. Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review.
And remember, you can always find more episodes and updates on our website and social media page. You can find us on Instagram at Nava.podcast. Until next time,
keep chasing your dreams and making your mark on the world.